West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing. You
can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
This mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
Hello. On a Tuesday, January 26, 2016. Good to see you. Welcome to the program. It's the Bill Press Show here on Free Speech TV and, of course, worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. It's good to have you with us today because we've got lots to talk about. And just 5 days now before the caucuses in Iowa. Let's get them over with and move on to New Hampshire. Well, the Democrats took a good move on that front last night at the big town hall on CNN from Drake University with Chris Cuomo as the moderator. First Bernie Sanders and then Martin O'Malley and then Hillary Clinton got to show their stuff, take questions from the audience, as well as a few barbs and follow-ups from Chris Cuomo. I think they each did well. 3 outstanding candidates. They each presented their case. They made their arguments. I prefer that forum, actually, to the debate forum. Bernie Sanders gave, I thought, the best definition I've heard so far of what it means to be a Democratic, small d, a Democratic socialist. Martin O'Malley touted again his record as Mayor of Baltimore and as governor of Maryland. And Hillary Clinton again cited her foreign policy experience. That's what they're running on, and the voters will make their choice. Meanwhile, that very civil conversation contrasts pretty sharply with the increasing rancor we see on the Republican side. Donald Trump continuing relentlessly to attack Ted Cruz over his citizenship, saying he would support Ted Cruz if he were running for Prime Minister of Canada. Ted Cruz picking up the endorsement of Rick Perry, whatever that means, while Marco Rubio is touting the endorsement of the Des Moines Register. And again today, federal government is shut down. D.C. schools are shut down. We are still digging out from Snowzilla. Good to have you with us. Give us a holler. Join the conversation. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine,
Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Federal government shut down again today. We're still digging out. What do you say, everybody? Great to see you today. Tuesday, January 26th. The Bill Press Show here from Snowzilla Central, Washington, D.C. Seriously, it shouldn't take this long. Seriously, everybody should be back to work today. I mean, seriously, this is getting a little ridiculous, I believe. But they're giving it at least another day. I'll bet you they'll give it even one more day before they say things are ready to get back to normal. But, it hasn't affected us. We're here. We're on the job. We're with you. Love you so much. We wouldn't take the day off. No. We wouldn't use the snow as an excuse not to be here to bring you up to date on all the news of the day, on the political front, the economic front, the foreign policy front, everywhere, whatever's happening. We will bring it to you and find out from you what you think about it all. 866-55-PRESS, you know the ticket. That's our toll-free number. That's how you join our conversation anytime on any topic. We look forward to hearing from you and look forward to getting your calls at 86. No, that's the telephone number, right? I started getting your comments on email. Already gave out the number. Comments on email. Twitter at BP Show, and Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Democratic Town Hall last night, the last chance that the voters of Iowa get to see all three Democratic candidates together before the caucuses on Monday. Thursday night, you get to see all the Republican candidates trot out. And I'll bet you it'll be, as it has been for every one of these forums, a totally different tone and a totally different tenor when the Republicans take the stage Thursday night as opposed to what we saw last night.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Believe that.
Yeah. Not much talk about the issues then. It'll all be talk about who did what to whom and who's really running for Prime Minister of Canada and who's running for President of the United States. So there you go. We are all together today. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson, as always, leading our team.
Hello, Bill.
Hey.
Here we are.
Good to see you. And Ray Rogers is back. Yep, she finally got dug out. We found out their neighbors. It's all public knowledge now. They did one of the oldest tricks in the books. They took up a collection in their neighborhood and they paid off the snowplows not to plow out their neighborhood. They all said, we'll pay you if you don't plow our street for another 24 hours.
It's not a bad strategy.
Not a bad strategy.
Remember that.
Mm-hmm. And Cyprian Balding. Sip make it in today? I haven't seen him.
He's here. He is here.
All right. Yesterday he had to park in Anacostia. Walk across the bridge. I hope we got a little closer place today. Yep. Whoa, watch out. Watch out. There he is. Well, we talked yesterday a little bit about Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Dropping this little tease bomb, which, by the way, we ought to get used to it now. He did this in 2008. He did this in 2012. He did this and he's doing it now again in 2016, where he teasing that he might spend $1 billion and run for president on his own. But one thing I mentioned, he's got a lot going for him. He's got the money. He wouldn't even miss $1 billion. He's got the airplane. He's got 3 years as mayor of New York. He's got some executive experience. He has been a member of both political parties. He's got the desire and the drive. But what I forgot is, as Jimmy Fallon reminded us last night, he also is bilingual. Huh?
In addition to Bush, Rubio, and Cruz, that'll make 4 candidates who can speak Spanish.
En las calles hoy porque viene otra tormenta. Si su casa es inundo.
Classic.
Even immigrants are like, speak English, we're fine. You're not helping us out.
Una casa de biblioteca.
Si su casa es inundo.
Blumbito, man. He's notoriously bad at that stuff. It's just so great.
If you are that bad, right?
Yeah.
We used to make fun of W, right?
Oh my God.
Mi casa es su casa.
Yeah.
W is fluent.
Yeah.
Compared
to Bloomberg.
To Bloomy.
Bloomberg's committed, though.
I give him that. He commits. But maybe he shouldn't.
No. If it's that bad, that's embarrassing. No.
So funny.
You don't do it. It's hard to believe it's so bad. Anyhow, hey, it's Tuesday. You know what that means. Arthur Delaney, Igor Volsky. And we're also proud to welcome back Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan, who brought one of those prisoners out of Iran, brought him home to the United States. He will tell us all about it in studio with us a little bit later today. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. I'm sure you've seen the stories about Zika, the disease that is terrifying much of the world right now.
Yeah.
Horrifying disease. It's gotten so big and so out of control right now. Yesterday, El Salvador urged women to hold off on getting pregnant until 2018. This virus really affects pregnant women and the children that they're carrying, and the children come out with severe problems. And so people are trying to stop women from getting pregnant. They're saying pregnant women shouldn't travel to certain countries, especially Brazil is having a real problem with it. Other Central American countries, women have been advised, do not travel there if you are pregnant. So hoping they're getting this thing under control here very soon. Last night, it was a battle on the Bay. The two most dominant teams in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors, with a record of 41-4, and the San Antonio Spurs with a record of 38-6. They went at it last night in Golden State at their arena, and
how'd that turn out, Peter?
It was all Golden State.
How did that turn out for your San Antonio Spurs?
I'm happy to report this story. I have no problems with this story. 120-90 was the final score. The Golden State Warriors absolutely destroyed the Tim Duncan-less San Antonio Spurs. Steph Curry leading the way, 37 points for the reigning MVP. The Spurs leading scorer was Kawhi Leonard, could only come up with 16 points. So that puts the Spurs at 38-7 and the Golden State Warriors 41-4.
A little embarrassed to report that story.
It's a basketball game in the middle of the season. It doesn't mean a whole lot.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not like Jamie, where both of my favorite teams played last night, so no matter what, I can say I won. Sometimes teams lose. That's okay. Hey, look at McDonald's, by the way. They're bouncing back in a big way. Remember, McDonald's has had all kinds of problems with sales, but this last quarter, their sales jumped 5.7% in the fourth quarter of last year. That's the best quarter they've had in nearly 4 years. Why? Because of the all-day breakfast. The all-day breakfast. This is the big move they made to try and get sales jump-started. And it's working. Their chief executive, Steve Easterbrook, said that it has exceeded their expectations, and they hope to see that continue to grow. So,
you know, I gotta tell you, there is something about like an Egg McMuffin or its equivalent, you know, in other places, right?
Oh, don't get me started.
Egg on a croissant with some cheese and bacon. There's nothing better.
Once a year, maybe. Road trips, right? I'm on a road trip. I'll get an Egg McMuffin.
Oh.
I'll get an Egg McMuffin.
But I mean, other restaurants, they serve us something similar, right? You know, croissant with egg, cheese, bacon.
Sure.
I could eat that any time of day.
Totally.
Right. All right. That doesn't mean I'm going into McDonald's. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. I'd love to know what you thought about the Democratic town hall last night. It was on CNN with Chris Cuomo from Drake University out in Iowa. I thought it was a very good format. I like that. I must admit, I really like that format where you get to see each of the candidates on his or her own. Each one gets a time, same amount of time, in front of the audience. Questions from the audience, not the moderators trying to be snarky. And last night was entirely based on the issues. And I thought each of them did very, very well. Proud of our team. I don't know how they decided what order they went in. Bernie went first, which I thought was a favorable position because a lot of people wouldn't stay up for the whole damn thing. Martin O'Malley in the middle, and then followed by Hillary Clinton. Again, I thought each of them were strong. Each of them did very, very well. And each of them had a chance to make their points. And what a contrast between that civil, substantive discussion of the issues with just the bickering that we see on the Republican and have seen in every one of the Republican debates. And I thought the questions were very good, and they touched on some sensitive issues, but they did it in a respectful way. Again, unlike the snarky TV moderators who are just trying to make a name for themselves do. But for example, just a little flavor of it, Hillary Clinton was asked by one young man who said and they identified, by the way, whether they were neutral, hadn't made up their mind, were supporting Bernie or Hillary or Martin O'Malley, or whether they were leaning one direction or the other. This young man was leaning, he said, toward Bernie, and said, because everything I hear about you, he says to Hillary, is that you're not an honest person. Why? What's that all about?
But if you're new to politics, if it's the first time you've really paid attention, you go, oh my gosh, look at all of this. And you have to say to yourself, why are they throwing all of that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I've been on the front lines of change and progress since I was your age. I have been fighting to give kids and women and the people who are left out and left behind a chance to make the most out of their own lives.
Yeah, a little condescending there in the beginning, but she's making her point. Yeah, that's why they're coming after me, because they don't like what I've been doing. I thought a very good point, very strong ending there. Martin O'Malley, again, talked about Baltimore and the things he had done as mayor. His first question, he was challenged on, when you got there, police community relations between the cops and black people in the community were worse than they've been maybe for a long time, if not ever. And, Martin O'Malley had to deal with that. Black Lives Matter, he said again. He also talked about the contrast between what we saw on the Democratic stage last night and what we've seen on the GOP stage.
If you look at our Democratic primary and the debates we've had, we're certainly doing a much better job of speaking to the goodness within our country rather than to fear and anger and loathing like we've heard from those other guys.
Oh, yeah. And Bernie Sanders asked about Hillary Clinton, and he stood up and said, look, I just wanted to see, you're probably going to be surprised about this, and then he said all kinds of very nice things about Hillary Clinton, how much he respected her, how long he has known her. But he did point out there are some honest differences on policy, one of them. In talking about her experience, it's sort of, well, what do you do with that experience? He said at one point, judgment is also important, not just experience. And here's where her judgment, he thought, failed.
I voted against the war in Iraq. And if you go to my website, listen to the speech that I gave when I was in the House in 2002, saying, yeah, it's easy to get rid of a dictator like Saddam Hussein, but there's going to be a political vacuum. There will be instability. And it gives me no pleasure to tell you that much of what I feared, in fact, happened. Hillary Clinton voted for the the war in Iraq.
Yeah, just making the statement, just pointing out the fact. Bernie also made the same comparison on the Keystone Pipeline, where he said right from the beginning, in terms of climate change, he knew this was bad. Why did it take Secretary Clinton so long to get there? But anyway, I thought it was a good forum, and anybody watching that sure had enough of a look at each of the candidates, I believe, and enough substance to really make up their mind about who they're going to support on Election Day, on Caucus Day coming up. If you saw the town hall, let us know what you thought, 866-55-PRESS. Also, when we come back, President Obama with a very revealing interview with Glenn Thrush from Politico. Sounds to me like he's just about ready to endorse Hillary Clinton. Is that the way you read it? We'll listen to some of that when we come back. Take your calls about last night's town hall at 866-55-PRESS.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour, Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post coming up next, followed by Igor Volsky from Think Progress. Of course, it's Tuesday. We've got the Arthur-Igor combo here. Talking about last night's town hall, if you had a chance to see it, a good look at all three Democratic candidates. Each of them did very well, I thought. Proud of each of them and happy with any one of them in the Oval Office. I'd be a happy man.
Even Martin O'Malley
Yes.
put a better performance on than any of the Republicans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Martin did. He was in good form.
He
last
does a
night.
good job.
Bernie was in good form. Hillary was in good form last night. It followed a very, very revealing interview that Glenn Thrush did with President Obama in the Oval Office for Glenn's podcast. Glenn's a good friend, been on our program many, many times. And he had this interview for his podcast for about 45 minutes with President Obama in the Oval Office.
It's a good get.
And he was probing the president about, by the way, and nobody's gotten the president to talk about Iowa and what's going on in the Democratic primary until Glenn did. And he was probing him about, so what do you think about what's going on out there? When you look at Bernie and when you look at Hillary, what do you see? Does it make you a little nostalgic for your efforts, all the time you spent there in 2008? President had some very interesting things. First of all, just a little comparison about the different role Bernie has in the primary and then Hillary has.
I think Bernie came in with the luxury of being a complete long shot, right, and just letting loose. Right. I think Hillary came in with the both privilege and burden of being perceived as the front runner.
Yeah, somewhere he either said or implied, like Bernie's the bright, new, shiny object.
Yeah.
And he's got that advantage. And then Hillary has more experience, but also she kind of drags around all that experience too. And the president said, but, that all that experience, yeah, it could be a disadvantage now, but he said there would be an advantage to her were she the nominee.
She can govern, and she can start here day one. More experience than any non-vice president has ever been who aspires to this office.
Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like an endorsement to me. She's saying she can start on day one. And what's interesting is that some of the criticisms President Obama had about Bernie Sanders not having all that experience are the very same criticisms that people made about Barack Obama in 2008.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Today, in this country, we are having a conversation about police violence, the killing of black men, and what all that means. It is sad that this is happening and that every day there's a new incident to cause us to keep thinking about it and talking about it. But it is extraordinary that the American people are having to deal with this every day, whether you're watching CNN or MSNBC, Fox, or ABC News. All the news channels are talking about police violence and what does that mean against black people. Many people probably look at that, certainly have looked at it in the past, and they have said that these poor black men are doing bad things, and that's why they are ending up in confrontations with police, without any understanding of their lives of these poor black young men. Part of what has been going on for decades is that poor black people live in communities that suffer from hyper surveillance of the police. Their police are more likely to be in their communities. The police are more likely to arrest them. The police are more likely to stop them even if they're not doing anything. And that is what is so hard for the American people to believe, that you would get stopped and searched and arrested by the police and not doing anything. But this is starting to come out as people are telling the stories over and over again. But this has been the condition, this hyper surveillance by police, making it more likely for people to get a record, to be known by the police, and then once they get in the system, it is almost impossible to get out because of the whole system of being on parole and missing an appointment or fraternizing with a person who has a criminal record, getting you right back in the jail, and then going back again and again and again. This is coming to be seen by the American people in a way that it has never been seen before. But why are people in these communities in the first place? That's getting peeled away. People are there because of housing discrimination. They are there because this is the only place where affordable housing can be found. They are there because that's where their families live, and people are drawn to being in communities where they are comfortable. The combination keeps people in these low-income communities where they are an easy target for hyper surveillance and then everything that comes from it. And so as we think about these issues, we have to understand that while you as an individual in this society, as a white individual, you may not carry personal racism, but that does not keep the system from operating in a racist way.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour on a Tuesday, January 26th. So good to see you today. Thank you for joining us again. It's The Bill Press Show, booming out to you live from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. A little reminder, February 2nd, the actual release of my new book. You've heard me talk a little bit about it, called Buyer's Remorse, which does three things, actually. It talks about all the good things President Obama has done, because, you know, we love President Obama, but also points out all the ways that he has let progressives down and didn't fight for some of the things that we really wanted him to fight for. And thirdly is really a call for the next president, whether it's Bernie or Hillary, to take the progressive agenda and run with it and really start what Bernie is calling a political revolution in this country. Buyer's Remorse, How Obama Let Progressives Down. You can get your own copy, signed copy, inscribed any way you want. Go to our website, BillPressShow.com. Right on the front page, you'll see the box there. Let us know how you want to sign, how you want to inscribe. $27 covers everything. The bill, the book, the mailing, the mailer, taxes, the whole thing. Get your own copy or several. Let us know. And on this Tuesday, through the snow doesn't stop him. Arthur Delaney here from Huffington Post. Hello, Arthur. Good to see you.
Good morning.
How did you weather Snowzilla?
Snowzilla was so fun. It's
Wasn't
really
it, though?
a glimpse of a better life. Nobody can work.
You mean not having to go to work?
Everybody's excited.
Right.
Everybody stares in amazement at the snow and at each other, and everyone has a nice time. Barring a personal disaster, which is bad, but no one I knew suffered one.
And
it was just a better society.
It brings people together. I don't know about on your block. Was everybody out like shoveling snow?
Everyone's out shoveling. We have a lot of alleys on our block, so people shove the alleys together. And it was really nice. People had little parties.
Now, the big thing is, did you take Jack down to the Capitol for sledding down Capitol Hill?
No, but I did pull him in a sled. He's one. He's not 2 or 3.
It might be a little advanced for the Capitol.
Yeah. So I pulled him in a sled, and he thought that was hilarious.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next year he'll be ready for
it won't be 7 years till we have another one of these. These happen every 7 years. It was a 7-year storm.
That's right.
I'm just saying, but there'll be enough snow to do some sledding next year. You got to take.
It'll be patchy. Nah.
You got to take him. All right. If we have enough snow for sledding, got to take him to Capitol Hill. It's such a great scene down there. Yeah.
I grew up going down that hill.
Did you really?
When the police would shoo us away, which they don't anymore. So.
Well, thank God now.
Yeah.
Thanks to Congressman Sam Farr, as we mentioned yesterday, and our own Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton. Right. I thought of you when I saw this Sunday in the New York Times. Fix Flint's water system now. You were really one of the first ones on top of this story. So where are we now, and who's responsible?
Well, we've had a series of resignations, starting with officials in the state agency that oversaw water regulation, and then moving on up to a regional administrator of the EPA. And I focused in a story a week and a half ago on what the EPA did.
Very good story.
And they had a really close involvement.
Yeah.
Almost as close as the state agency itself. Now the EPA wasn't there in the very beginning. It's not their fault that this started, but they were not aggressive once they had an inkling that there was a major problem with high lead levels in the water. And the story is called How the Federal Government Botched the Flint Water Crisis. It explains some of the red flags that they missed or convinced themselves weren't really red. It's kind of a beige flag. And it was that kind of thing, this bureaucratic self-reassurance that prolonged the crisis. But for people who want to understand why this happened, it's not as complicated as it's being made out to be. Sure, there are lead pipes and there was this sort of political decision to change the water source. It's really simple. After they changed the water source, they didn't treat the water correctly, and that's it. They could have treated it correctly, and this wouldn't have happened.
Had they treated it correctly, it would not have corroded the pipes. Right.
You can use river water.
Right.
It's not as easy as using water from a lake, but you can. And what they had to do was treat it for corrosion, which in this instance means adding phosphates to the water so that the phosphates will line the pipes. They already had phosphates lining the pipes because they had corrosion treatment from the Detroit water they started with. If they had added phosphates, and it's clear, if you read the EPA's Safe Drinking Water Act regulation, this is what you do. You control for corrosion if the water system is of a certain size, 50,000 people or more. And they just didn't. And this is a textbook situation of what happens when you don't do that.
All right. So, by the way, I do have to mention on the EPA's role. When President Obama was going to Detroit last week, pardon me, at our White House briefing, and you probably saw it or maybe read the transcript, Josh Earnest was asked whether the president was going to go to Flint, and Josh's response was no, he's not going. He's going to focus in Detroit on the auto industry. And besides, he met with the mayor of Flint and said, we'll do whatever we can to help. But he said, basically, the federal government didn't have any involvement here. It's a local issue. It's up to the state and everything. And I'm sitting there thinking, You better talk to Arthur Delaney, dude, because EPA was right in the middle of this. And it was either, I really don't think Josh was like trying to avoid that. I think he had zero idea of the role of EPA. I haven't seen anybody but you talk about that.
Did not see him say that. Previously, he was asked about the EPA and said, "Oh, I don't know whether they deserve blame for this." So I don't know if he's changed his position.
Kind of it. No, it wasn't denying any responsibility. It was just basically ignorant of any role that EPA might have played.
They can't be at this point with what happened last week with Susan Hedman, the regional administrator, handing in her resignation. I think that really shows you the EPA knows
that
it wasn't doing the best it could, even though they have said, we didn't do anything wrong, we followed the law.
Yeah.
But that's not satisfactory when you had elevated
they knew there were some problems and they didn't really do anything about it, didn't put the pressure on. Now, will Governor Rick Snyder survive this?
Here's the key to surviving any political crisis if you're in elected office. Don't resign. If you don't resign, you won't lose your job. And I think Rick Snyder has shown that he does not want to resign.
Rahm Emanuel was following the same playbook.
Yeah, if you don't resign, you won't lose your job. Did David Vitter resign? No. Did he lose his job? No. So Rick Snyder started off by, after his government was lackadaisical, didn't do a good job.
Yeah, and they were making fun of the critics at Flint, ridiculing them.
Yeah. And sure, his administration knew people were being given brown water. They did not know necessarily that it was poisonous water, but if it's brown, that actually should be a warning sign. But anyway, they didn't have the confirmation. They brushed off the complaints about the water being disgusting. It's not clear that Snyder knew there was neurotoxins in the water until after everyone knew. So as soon as it was clear to the Snyder administration, it seems to me that they've been really busy. They've certainly, we got a task force. I'm going to fire this person. I'm going to ask for federal emergency relief, and they got it. And now I think he's also hired some PR firms. He's been saying, I'm sorry, it's our fault. So it looks like he's going to not resign.
So Michael Moore says this is a clear case of white man poisons black population's drinking water. It's a criminal offense, and he should be arrested for it.
Yeah,
over the top.
It's a question that you have to ask. Is this environmental racism because you have a white administration and a majority black city? Flint is 57% African American. So I think it's a fair thing to ask. I don't think that it was a deliberate poisoning or that subconscious racism informed the decision. I mean, I really think it was a mistake. And it wasn't like, we're going to give him the Flint River even though we know it sucks because we don't care. I think it was more bureaucratic incompetence.
It sounds like something right out of colonial Africa. White man coming in poisoning water. The water supply.
I'll say this much: if this was a group of affluent white people whose water started turning brown out of the tap, and this story wouldn't last very. I mean, that would have been fixed a lot faster.
If it happened in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, instead of Flint, Michigan, the response would have been different.
Yeah, one thing you do have to wonder about is people were complaining that their water was brown, tasted bad, had a chemical flavor. They knew there was E. coli. And they knew there were chemical byproducts.
Yeah.
It caused rashes. This was all before they knew about the lead. The lead was the kicker. But it was disgusting water for a long time, almost immediately after the switch.
Right.
So it's weird that was allowed to go on for as long as it was. I mean, each time the complaints were raised, they would say, well, we'll add more chlorine or we'll add more lime. So it's not exactly like they were totally indifferent, but you can see in the emails that were released, there's a sort of a callousness or unwillingness to really appreciate that this was disgusting water for quite some time before the lead issue forced them to deal with it.
And so now, don't think it's been fixed yet. They're paying more attention to it. But the residents of Flint, Michigan, probably a long time before they're going to be able to trust the water out of the taps. And in the meantime, what's going on? Arthur Delaney, he's on top of it for Huffington Post. Here in studio with us, out there in Flint. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS or with your own story somewhere else in the nation. Look forward to hearing from you. We'll be right back.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before Igor here on the Bill Press Show. Igor Volsky from Think Progress up at the top of the next hour. Right now, Arthur Delaney leading the coverage on Flint, Michigan, and the big water scandal out there. Arthur, I do have to ask you, so what happens? How long is it going to be before, are they treating the water now, or how long is it going to be before they can turn on the tap water and drink it without having to boil it? And what do they do in the meantime?
Well, they switched back to Detroit's water in October. It's amazing how the political fallout has brought national attention kind of long after they already had settled on what should be a solution. And that's a process. You got to get the pipes to be recoated the interior of the pipes to be recoated with a layer of phosphate, and that's in the process of happening. That's something that could take as long as 6 months, but Flint people I talked to last week said their water is already a little better. They're not drinking it, of course, but it doesn't seem as gross coming out of the tap. So it's a period of months.
And in the meantime, they're getting the bottled water, right?
Door-to-door bottled water delivery by the National
Guard.
Guard.
Once a week or every day?
Every day, and a lot of people, what they're doing is there are these there are these water stations at firehouses.
Yeah.
And you drive there, you pick up a case of water, and then you might drive to another one, pick up another case of water.
Yeah.
So it's a very crazy situation.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine living that way, right?
No. I mean, that is like a third world country.
And you're showering less frequently. So even though you can't, I mean, you're not going to be poisoned by taking a shower with this water. Though they do say, some people told me they've had rashes or it makes their skin really dry.
Well, also, kids bathing, giving their kids a bath in this water, right? I've seen some mothers on television talking about that. Beverly's calling from out in St. David, Illinois. Hey, Beverly.
Hi, Bill. How's it going?
All right. What do you think about this?
I'm glad that you guys are all okay.
Thank you,
my dear.
We survived.
I was praying for you all. I really was.
That's
and
how.
Sorry, Jamie, about New England.
Thank you, Beverly.
Congratulations. To a nicer fella.
And your comments on Flint, Beverly?
Well, first, Mr. Delaney, you've left out a few items. First of all, the EPA has sent an 18-page manifesto that Mr. Snyder, who is the worst governor in the United States, an 18-page manifesto that has to be, they have to get it done within 10 days. Secondly of all, Rachel Maddow has been on this for over a year, and she's got a town hall meeting on her show for Wednesday night.
Tomorrow night, huh?
Live from Flint.
Good. All right.
And it's been good. And last night, there was a gentleman on, and it showed a map of all the pipes in Flint, Michigan. And on the richer part of town, their water is the lead is not as bad, but in the poor section, poor white, poor black, it's red, and they said that was 10 times faster than what should be done.
Oh, wow. All right.
So the EPA issued an emergency order the same time they announced the resignation of the regional person, and the order gives them more power. They're going to test the water themselves, and they're going to take charge of this situation. This is what they resisted doing all last year. And there were people petitioning them to issue an emergency
now
order
they're on it,
and take control of the situation. So belatedly, they are on it now.
And I think it's Cindy Giles, I believe, at EPA, the person at EPA headquarters here in Washington, who has taken charge of this now.
Right.
And what about this? There are areas of Flint that are getting better water than, or pipes better than other areas of Flint.
It's different from zip code to zip code, and some individual places had a much higher spike in the rate of children with high blood lead levels.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine why this would be, because if you have lead service lines connecting from the water main to your house, part of that is on private property. People in wealthier areas might be more able to pay to have that replaced. This is really old plumbing equipment.
I'll bet, yeah. Just like we had, as you pointed out, we had the same situation here in Washington, D.C. several years ago, and maybe worse, right?
It went on for 3 years, and it wasn't a story like this.
All right. Well, Arthur, you and Rachel keep on top of this and keep us up to date. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in, Arthur. All right, we'll see you. And Igor Volsky coming up next. We'll wrap things up in just a minute.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
So you're drowning in student debt, and it looks like there's no way out. Have you considered bankruptcy? Of course not. It's a dirty word, and everything you've heard says students can't file anyway. It didn't start that way. Bankruptcy laws were enacted in the 19th century to give people a fresh start. But not all debt is created equal. Take this, for example. We have you, your buddy Carlos, and your Grandma Lucy. Carlos got laid off. His credit card debt was too much to handle, so he filed for bankruptcy. It will totally screw his credit, but at least he can start fresh, and after 10 years, his credit report should be fine. Grandma Lucy's home lost half its value. Now her mortgage isn't worth paying back. She says F it and decides to file for bankruptcy too. Then there's you. You didn't land that dream job, you're struggling to make ends meet, but the interest just keeps piling up. With a broken heart, you've written off the possibility of buying a home, having kids, and getting married because, hello, who wants to deal with your crazy baggage? But in reality, you want those things, and your education was supposed to get you there. Now you need a fresh start, just what bankruptcy was intended for. You try to file, like Carlos and Grandma Lucy, and that's when you realize it's not as easy for you as it was for them. In the 70s, Congress worried that students were using bankruptcy to abuse loan programs. That wasn't quite true. Still, over the years, Congress gradually stripped student debtors of their options. The Bankruptcy Reform Act of 1978 was even called discriminatory toward students by the chairman of the subcommittee. Student debt was singled out and lumped with criminal debts. Today, if student debtors try filing for bankruptcy anyway, they'll need to prove their debt imposes an undue hardship. But who's to say what qualifies as an undue hardship? Even some judges have said they don't get it. This lack of clarity in the law could work in your favor. A Harvard researcher discovered in 2012 that few students actually try to discharge their loans through bankruptcy. Of the students who filed for bankruptcy to settle other debts, only 0.1% try the same tactic on their school debt. The craziest part? Just under half of them got their debts fully or partially discharged. In other words, you can file for bankruptcy on your student loans. Depending on your situation, it might just be a matter of trying. At least there's that.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Waiting for Igor at the top of the next hour.
Yesterday, President Obama made a big move. He banned solitary confinement for juveniles in federal prison. He calls the process devastating, says that it leaves lasting psychological consequences from the use of isolation as punishment.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Oh, my God. No, I can't. I mean, it's where they just put them in total and utter isolation. They can't deal with other members of the prison population. So he is shutting it down. He says it's been linked to depression, alienation, withdrawal, and a reduced ability to interact with others and the potential for violent behavior. He wrote the op-ed that was posted on the Washington Post website late last night.
Mm-hmm. Of course, Republicans will probably sue him for abusing his executive authority.
I'm sure.
Even for something that had been done a long time ago. We'll be back with Igor Volsky, hour number 2 of today's Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, guys, I want to take the last part of the day to change our focus and talk a little bit about water. There's rivers, there's lakes, there's huge oceans. You get thirsty, you just go and you get some water, right? We rely on rain for our water. We even rely on snow. But what if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. I want you to tell your parents, your friends, your neighbors, how important it is to save water. It's up to you guys to save the planet. All right? What if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. It's up to you guys to save the planet.
Hi, I'm Mark LaFleur, and I produced the short film you just watched called Aquaforce. California is experiencing one of the worst droughts it's ever had, and now, more than ever, it's important for everyone to do their part to help conserve water. The reason I made this film is because I wanted to make something fun and informative that would get people talking about the California drought. Obviously, this is an important issue because we have a limited amount of clean drinking water. I think it was very important to let people know, especially young people, that this is an important resource, maybe our most important resource, and it's something that we can't take for granted and we certainly can't waste. I really wanted this to be something that children would respond to. The kind of thing that any kid anywhere in the world, no matter what language they speak, could understand the story and be entertained by it and leave it knowing that this is something important, that if they didn't already know about this, that it's now going to be a part of the way that they think about water, the way that they live life, and that it's something that they'll share with their friends. The fact that they watch this video once or twice and they immediately understand that water is important, that's it. That was the whole point of this thing, to get it into the conversation, to make it something that kids are thinking about, talking about, that they're aware of, and that they know is important. This project was self-funded, so we relied on the support of our community to make it happen. It was pretty amazing to just have our neighbors, our friends, and our coworkers come together and volunteer their time and their homes and their kids to make this thing happen. Thanks for checking out the video. Keep the Aquaforce going, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Federal government shut down again today. Well, you know, it takes a long time to dig out from such a big storm, I guess. Hello, everybody. Doesn't stop us. We are here with you on The Bill Press Show this Tuesday, January 26th. Welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us on the radio and on TV. On the radio, of course, on your local progressive talk radio station, and either on the TuneIn or the iHeartRadio app. Both of them great, very handy. Follow us on your electronic device, on the radio, anywhere you go in this country. And on TV, of course, there with you on Free Speech TV and with TawkrTV. And we know Igorians Unite. You're tuned in at this hour for Igor Volsky from Think Progress, and we're sorry he's not here today. He got snowed in. No, just kidding.
Quite.
Hello, Igor. Nice to see you. The snow's not going to stop you.
No, it's my first time out of the house in 4 days, so I'm very happy to see all of you.
Welcome back to the world.
I'm actually wearing real clothing for a change.
Why
so
aren't you
it feels
out there
a little
shoveling
new.
snow?
Oh, I outsourced that work to my husband. He did a very nice job. We have a very nice and safe pathway for both me and the dogs. For me to walk from my house to the Uber, I felt very safe this morning.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we thank Brian for
Yes.
this.
Thank you, Brian.
Ain't life grand?
Oh, so good.
Yeah. Now, this alley, could you call Brian this alley?
Yeah, I'll let him know.
7th and 8th Street could
He has a couple of free hours this morning.
Good.
I will let him know.
Get him right over.
Yep.
He did such a good job.
He did
over
a
there.
very good job.
Could use a little work over here, right?
He talked about something about being a Midwestern boy and how it prepared him for these kinds of activities. I don't really know.
Oh, man.
All right. You mean in New Jersey you were not prepared for this?
I did a lot of shoveling in New Jersey. I did my share in New Jersey. Here in D.C., it's his turn.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
All right. Thank you for joining our team here, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Hey, here we are.
With Ray Rogers, finally made it out of her little snowed-in area in Northern Virginia. And Cyprian Bolding here as well, our videographer. And don't forget, Ray here to take your calls to 866-55-PRESS. Well, we know that you New Jerseyans and storms. Chris Christie has had his problem. So he's in New Hampshire when the storm hits. Maybe stays there a little too long. People are saying, what are you doing here? And he goes back to New Jersey, right? So he can be there for like 24 hours or something just to show that he's, man. And was once more in the position of having to ask President Obama for federal assistance to take care of a storm. Then he goes back to New Hampshire, and then he's slammed for, what the hell are you doing in New Hampshire? Why aren't you back in New Jersey? Chris Christie not too happy with that criticism as he displayed.
I don't know what you expect me to do. You want me to go down there with a mop? I'm the governor. I'm, not the chief engineer. And I run a government of 60,000 people. They know exactly what they need to do.
Yeah. What the hell do you want me to do? Get down there with a shovel or a mop?
By the way, Brian is available to go down to
I
New
was gonna
Jersey.
say, yeah.
If we need
He needs
some
a Brian
help.
in his life.
Sometimes Chrissy bristles a little bit too much. That's not
Yeah.
the right way to handle that.
Yeah.
Everything's all right. I'm in touch. Whatever.
What do you want me to do? Go get a mop?
Who uses a mop, first of all?
By
Let's
the
start
way.
there. Does he not even know you need to use a shovel?
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, don't go mop the snow.
Yeah, let me go mop
Good
the
luck
snow.
with that.
I did see like a lot of people over the weekend. Shovels, brooms in
Brooms
some
are okay.
cases, right?
Brooms have their place.
I didn't see
brooms.
Well, yeah.
Especially for light snow like this. Brooms have their place.
Brooms have their place.
Brooms have their
You want to
place.
get the snow off your car? A broom's better than a shovel.
I broke a broom.
For example.
You broke a broom?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, dude.
My point I was going to make is I didn't see anybody out there with a mop.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
That would be bad.
Igor here at the top of the hour. Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan, just back from bringing one of our American prisoners home from Iran. And he'll also tell us about Flint, Michigan. He's here in the studio at the next half hour. And then Steve Shepard from Politico next hour. But first, all right, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. You see, we got some snow this weekend.
I
You hear about
noticed,
this?
yes.
You hear about
No.
this? New York got some snow themselves. Now, here's something that one young entrepreneur had this idea in Brooklyn. He and his roommates put a giant hill of snow sort of in their backyard, and then they dug it out to make an igloo out of it. And what they did is they put it on Airbnb for $200 a night. Now, they found this out because when they went onto Airbnb to list their apartment, there was actually a category where you could click igloo.
Oh.
You could rent out an igloo. Really.
Oh.
You really can. But this did not meet the criteria of an igloo, apparently. They shut it down. He described it as a boutique winter igloo for two, dripping with ingenuity and alt lifestyle aura. This is the Snowpocalypse most desirable getaways, built completely by hand, all natural. Come experience this chic dome-style bungalow with your bay. So,
What are you doing this weekend? Maybe
I'm
I
not
thought
staying
we could.
in a friggin' igloo in Brooklyn because Airbnb has shut it down since it did not meet the criteria. So there you go. You know, people go and take yoga classes, right? Because you have to have a teacher to show you the right way to do it.
Yeah,
right?
I
There's
hear
a right
people
way
to
to
do
do
this, yeah.
Well, maybe not for long. There's a wearable tech called the Naughty Smart Fitness Pant. It looks at how you move, and it will give you a little push in the right direction to get the right form. In other words, these pants have subtle electronic sensors that can tell what move you're making, right? If you want to do yoga at home, and it corrects you into doing it the right way.
Oh, come on.
That's what it does. That's what it does. It vibrates.
Sounds incredibly annoying.
It does sound really
It does also.
It vibrates so that you don't have to pay for yoga classes or pay for a teacher.
Oh, no.
It has the program.
I'll give that a big BS. What's next?
All right, next story. Next story. If you go to Des Moines, Iowa, the historic Northside Cafe just unveiled a new entree. It is called the Trump Burger. The Trump Burger. This is how they describe it directly from their menu. For the man who likes to ham it up for the cameras, it's stacked with a half a pound of ham, which is a lot of ham on top of a burger. Half a pound of ham on top of our no-nonsense, all-beef, all-American monument third-pound burger with shredded cheese as Trump continues to shred the competitions in the polls. Grilled onions for all the tiers from political pundits who cannot figure Trump out. And it's served on the incredible Northside bread right here in the heart of America, the Northside Cafe. $14.99 gets you that, served with a side of fries. That's, as they put it, we're making the hamburger great again with the Trump Burger.
Gold-crusted burger.
You know what? Yeah. Well, they got 5 more days to sell that, and then that'll be...
Third of a pound of a hamburger, and then a half pound of ham on top of it.
Sounds a little disgusting.
That sounds
frankly.
terrifying.
It's way too much.
Well, I'd say it's as disgusting as the man it's named after, right?
Yeah.
Shredded cheese?
14 minutes after the hour. So, Igor, a very interesting story about Planned Parenthood. We know a couple of months ago, these guys took these videos and then doctored these videos to try to prove that Planned Parenthood was selling body parts. And then they take Planned Parenthood to court over this alleged practice, and it didn't quite work out the way they expected. Tell us about it.
It didn't go exactly as planned, if you will.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey!
Yeah. You got to have that sound ready for me, Jamie, because I'm just going to be making jokes left and right. Yes, the Attorney General from Texas, the Lieutenant Governor from Texas, asked the Attorney General to investigate Planned Parenthood, and so they did. They spent months on this investigation, brought in all kinds of different law enforcement to figure out if Planned Parenthood was violating the law. If, one, it was selling this tissue, which is illegal, and two, if it was changing its medical practices in order to obtain the tissue in the cleanest possible way. And it turned out that rather than indicting Planned Parenthood, they turned around, the grand jury did, and indicted the two videographers who filmed these videos that were released in July.
Right? Yeah.
There was a 3-year process of obtaining these videos, and the grand jury said that these two individuals, one is the founder of this Center for Medical Progress, by the way, which was so annoying, Center for Medical Progress, because it sounds like Center for American Progress.
Right?
For one, for changing and modifying federal government documents, they used fake driver's licenses to get into the center, and for two, for selling this tissue, which is exactly what they had accused Planned Parenthood of. And that comes from an email that this founder sent to the Planned Parenthood asking to buy the tissue for $1,600. Planned Parenthood never responded to that request. And now that email could be seen as a proposition to buy and thus could be outlawed. Could be illegal.
So really it boomerangs, right? It totally backfired.
Totally backfired
on this Center for Medical Progress. But can that really happen? You go into a grand jury with charges against somebody, and instead they file charges against you?
Well, to their credit, the Attorney General here went in and said, we're going to look at the entirety of this case. We're going to present everything, not everything, we're going to present all of the evidence.
All the facts. And
all of the facts.
You decide if anybody did wrong, right?
Right. I think that's exactly how you were in this situation. This very, very strange situation. Of course, now there's some fallout, but it doesn't, as we see with a lot of instances here, when any politician is certain and confident of something, it doesn't matter what the facts are. So just to kind of backpedal a little bit, here you have news that Planned Parenthood did nothing wrong. And by the way, they were exonerated by this grand jury, which specifically said they did nothing wrong. But you also have 6 other states that investigated Planned Parenthood in the aftermath of these videos and found they did nothing wrong. You have 5 states who tried to start an investigation and then turned around and said, wait a second.
There's nothing here.
There's nothing here. So this is the situation you're in. Add to all of that this latest news. So how do Republicans respond, Bill? What do they now say? They built their entire campaigns on this. They coordinated back in July with the Center for Medical Progress to hold all kinds of congressional hearings. There's no less than 5 investigations going on in Congress of Planned Parenthood. What do they say? So I listened to Carly Fiorina. You'll remember her. She's still running for president.
It's hard to believe.
She led the charge.
Is Ben Carson still running for
president?
He's
still running for president.
Carly. So Carly was out there yesterday.
Carly was out there on Peter's favorite radio show. I'll just leave it at that. And she was asked about this directly. And she said, well, I know the truth. And I will not sit down. Nobody will shut me up. I know the truth that they were selling baby parts and that was very clear on the videos. And I don't understand why these videographers were indicted. And I don't know the details just yet, but I know I won't sit down. I will continue this crusade. And that is what all of the Republican presidential candidates who have been asked about it said. Marco Rubio was just on CNN arguing that these videographers did a service to the public by exposing Planned Parenthood. So they're not backing down. The facts don't matter.
Give it
But this is not the first time.
Did Carly release her video, the video we've been waiting for since that debate with the baby kicking on the table, right?
She has not.
No.
After she's president, she will.
Yeah, I'm sure. This isn't the first time that Carly specifically has sort of like in the face of direct proof, double down on her lie.
It literally does not
Like
matter.
she's done this
what
before
is.
with the Army general who quit because he was disgusted with Obama's policies. Except it was a guy who quit before Obama ever became president, and someone told her that, and she said, "No, I stand by what I said."
Yeah,
Like,
but this is a great victory for Planned Parenthood, and it certainly exposes the whole lies that were told and the tactics that were used by this by this group. Yeah,
You can't use fraudulent documents. Big surprise.
Totally bogus. It really goes back to, wasn't it the Breitbart thing with the woman from the Department of Agriculture?
Shirley
Sherrod.
Yeah.
Yeah, the James O'Keefe. That's the one. James O'Keefe.
Yeah,
Ugh.
right. What was working for Wasn't it for Breitbart?
I don't think he was working.
It wasn't
for
working directly for them, but the Breitbart people used his video to go on that all-out attack on Shirley Sherrod. She lost her job.
Yeah, she lost her job, and she was forced to resign by the administration before they knew the facts about it too, which was outrageous for her. Well, the Planned Parenthood, it's so delicious to get them see what they deserve. Now, so will they face criminal charges now?
So now they're indicted.
They are.
They are. Yes, warrants have been issued for the director of the Center for Center for Medical Progress. Hello, Center for Medical Progress. And I mean, after 8 years, it's just hard to end Center with anything but American Progress.
Yes, of course. Company man.
And yes, that's right. And one of the other videographers. So they're going to have to deal with this thing. They issued a statement late last night saying that they're protected by the First Amendment and that they have exposed Planned Parenthood, and you can't, what the video shows, you can't hide, and no grand jury will kind of dismiss that truth. Of course, if you ask Planned Parenthood, they will tell you these videos were very heavily edited, and that while they used very kind of medical terms that were interpreted as crude by the general public, they did nothing wrong. That's what they've been saying this whole time.
I hope these guys end up in the slammer. It would serve them right. We're here with Igor Volsky. Join the conversation. You know how to do it? 866-55-PRESS.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. At 26 minutes after the hour, with Igor Volsky from Think Progress, Congressman Dan Kildee back from Germany with one of our American prisoners. Will tell us all about it and tell us what's going on in Flint, Michigan. So, Igor, as you know, President Obama gave a very revealing interview with Glenn Thrush from Politico the other day. And he was talking about advantages that Bernie has and advantages that Hillary has. And here's how he says where Hillary, in the primary, she sort of has figured that, she's the establishment candidate. She's just talking about all the experience she has. Bernie, he says, is the bright, new, shiny object. But he says there's one advantage to this experience that Hillary has.
She can govern, and she can start here day one. More experience than any non-vice president has ever been who aspires to this office.
Now, tell me that's not an endorsement.
That sounds very much like an endorsement.
Sure
He's
does.
been trying to stay neutral this entire time, but I think, people assume that he was if push really came to shove, you could see him endorsing Hillary. If we're in a situation after Iowa and New Hampshire and she loses both of those races and South Carolina gets closer all of a sudden, where President Obama is very well liked among the Democratic Party and Democratic voters, you could envision a world where he says a little something even more direct than that.
4 of his cabinet members have endorsed Hillary.
Yes.
And now he's basically saying, what I find funny is he's saying things about Bernie that people said about him in 2008.
Yes.
He's the bright, new, shiny object. He doesn't have the experience. But, he's thinking continuity now. And I think he sees that Hillary is more likely to continue what he's been doing.
Yeah.
President Obama's supporting Hillary, but
let's be frank.
This
Thanks,
is
Igor.
the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Help keep all the presidential candidates straight with your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
And here we go at 33 minutes after the hour. Another little reminder that my new book comes out next week. Talking about all the good things President Obama has done, but also some of the ways in which he left some of us progressives wishing that he were a little more aggressive on some issues, and calling for Bernie and Hillary to really pick up the Bernie or Hillary to pick up the progressive agenda and run with it. Title of my book, Buyer's Remorse: How Obama Let Progressives Down. And if you go to our website, BillPressShow.com, you can get a signed copy, and just tell us how you want it signed. We'll get it out to you. It's $27 for the book, the mailing, the mailer, all that kind of stuff, the tax, everything. Take care of it, and we'll get a book out to you. And we are so pleased to welcome back to the United States after a heroic mission to help bring our 5 American prisoners home from Iran, including one that he's been fighting to free. And you've talked to us about this, Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan, from Flint, Michigan. You've talked about Amir Hekmati every time you've been in.
Right.
You've been on this case for like 5 years now, right?
Yeah. Well, since I came to Congress and before that, so
Well,
he's been.
congratulations and
Thank
great
you.
work. We thank you on behalf of all Americans. And what a relief, huh? How'd you get the word that he was going to be released?
Well, I was driving in my car, and his sister, Sarah Hekmati, with whom I've become very close friends, she and her husband Rami, she called me early Saturday morning, and she said she'd just spoken to Amir. He was at the Swiss embassy with our friend Julio Haas, who I've been working with now for years, and he was coming home. And
Oh,
it was,
man.
I mean, it was the moment that I had been thinking about for years and wondering how I would react. And, I didn't run off the road, but it was pretty close.
Right.
That's an amazing call to get, man.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this must have been such a relief.
And it was,
you know?
and honestly, it was me. It was my staff who worked really hard on this, and the whole Flint community in a lot of ways, and broader than that. But for us, this was a hometown kid, and if there's one thing people are now learning about Flint, is that we stick together.
Mhm.
We stick together when our backs are up against the wall. Whether it's one kid from our hometown in an Iranian prison, or this incredible challenge
Or
that
the
we
entire
have.
population with the drinking water, which we want to talk about as well. So you and Congressman Jared Huffman from Mill Valley, or from Marin County.
Right.
Our congressman, Carol and I, our congressman in Marin, he and Jason Rezaian from the Post lives in Mill Valley, his district. So you
Right.
guys were able to go over to Germany to meet them, right?
It was great. I mean, yeah, we were there the day that they arrived. They had arrived a few hours ahead of us and got some sleep and some medical exams.
Had you met Amir before?
I had never met him. I spoke to him on the telephone after he was with the Swiss on the way to Germany.
Yeah.
But other than that, all of my communication was sort of second channel through his sister on the telephone. It was because those calls were monitored and I couldn't go on those calls.
So what did he think to find out that a member of Congress had been fighting for him all these years? The President of the United States had been fighting for all these years.
Well, he knew that I was involved and that his family was involved. In fact,
Yeah.
he told me once of how he got a letter that I had written him in prison, but all they gave him was the empty, opened envelope. They took the content out. So he knew we were doing things. I had written a letter in The Guardian that some of the guards had gotten to him.
Mm-hmm.
He was completely surprised the extent of the public and all the attention that his case had gotten. And when he got home, there was a bank of television cameras unlike anything we've seen when he landed at Flint Bishop Airport. It was just an amazing moment.
Yeah.
Pretty emotional for all of us that were involved in it, to be honest with you.
So
I believe that.
I bet.
I
Yeah,
do believe
yeah.
that. That's insane.
So what is life like for him now?
Well, I just was strangely texting with him yesterday, and he told me, he says, I'm not wasting any time, and I'm not going to do this thing where I kind of let my feet get on the ground. I'm paraphrasing a bit.
Yeah.
But he's jumping right into life. He went shopping, went to the bookstore. He's thinking about going back to school. He's a really remarkable young man.
How old is he?
He's 32.
32,
Yeah.
and a veteran, right?
A veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. He served his country, and I think that, from what we can gather, was the evidence that the Iranians used to convict him. They convicted him of cooperating with a hostile government. Initially, he was convicted of espionage and sentenced to death.
Yeah. Ooh.
So he was sitting in an Iranian jail cell, sentenced to death, with no ability to speak to anybody outside the jail and no real attorney supporting him.
Did he suffer any physical abuse, did he say?
He did suffer, and he's going to talk a lot more about this. He and I have talked a bit about it, but he wants to tell his story in his own time. But suffice to say, there was physical, there was psychological abuse that matches the reputation of Evan Prison.
And was that true of the other prisoners? Did you have a chance to talk with them?
I spoke with Jason Rezaian a little bit, but he didn't say much about that. We were just so happy to see them. It was more of a happy moment. We didn't go too deeply into the circumstances of their incarceration.
And does Amir have a book agent?
I don't know if he has a book agent, but he sure has a story to tell.
I believe
I have my own interpretation of what the meaning is. You have to find meaning in these things, right? Especially if you come from Flint. If anybody on earth would have been justified in saying that all hope is lost. Think about being sentenced to death in an Iranian prison, no access to anybody else, no ability to speak to anybody else, and in solitary confinement. But this is a guy who kept his spirit. When he walked, when I first saw him, I walked into a little room right after they had been released and gone through their medical exams. He stood up, came over, put his arms around me, and we just started talking, and it immediately occurred to me, there's the spark of life is still very, very strong in this young man, and that's what you fear is that they could break that spirit.
Yeah. It would be so hard to keep
Yeah.
up that just determination and everything. So many people would give up. Yeah,
he's amazing. I mean, everybody I've talked to, anybody who helped, they'll be so proud to talk to him because he's just an incredible guy.
Yeah. Well, we're proud of you and the great job that you did there. And it would. Do you think this could have happened without the Iran nuclear deal?
Very doubtful, because the Iran nuclear deal opened initially informal channels of communication, and then, as we now know, and I knew then, also opened a separate channel of negotiation
on these
Americans. And then, there were a lot of things going on. The administration negotiated the release. We were involved, all the public stuff we were doing, we were involved in our own effort. A lot of independent discussions. I met with the Iranians on many, many occasions, met with the Swiss, met with the Omanis. And it was very clear that none of that would have borne fruit had we not opened the negotiation with Iran on the nuclear deal.
Yeah. So as good as that deal was, and I think it was still a great deal and is a great deal, it paved the way for a lot. And I think in the future, too, there are going to be more benefits of that, ancillary benefits.
I think especially after the economic effect of the sanction relief takes root in Iran, it often has the effect of democratizing.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about this what's the latest on the drinking water situation in Flint, as if the good congressman didn't have enough on his plate. Got the entire population of Flint to care for as well. Congressman Dan Kildee from Flint, Michigan. And your calls, of course, welcome. Comments or questions for the congressman at 866-55-PRESS.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we are at 50 minutes before the top of the hour with Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan, Flint, indeed. So, Congressman, we've talked a lot here and finally getting national attention to the situation in Flint. Where do we stand today? And are we on our way to recovery? And who bears the blame?
Well, where we stand today is that the water is still not drinkable. They have switched back for now a couple of months to the Detroit water source, but it takes time for the corrosion control to be fully optimized to coat the pipes so that there's no lead leaching. That's going to require a lot of testing, and frankly, the public is going to be slow to accept that because they've been told for a long time by the very same government that the water is safe to drink. As to who's to blame,
so how long do you think that it'll take before the pipes are?
It's a matter of months. The issue is complicated by the fact that there will be yet another switch to the permanent Lake Huron water source. This is all precipitated by a change that Flint and Genesee County initiated a few years back to have their own direct pipeline to Lake Huron. There was this temporary use of the Flint River in the interim that really caused all the difficulty, and the fact that it was completely botched by the people who were in charge.
By the people who were in charge, meaning local, state, federal?
Well, state for the most part, almost entirely. It's hard to say that there isn't responsibility across the spectrum, but when you think about the fact that the state government had taken over the city of Flint with an emergency manager, and that the emergency manager was charged with one thing and one thing only: cut cost, cut.
Is this Mr. Early?
Well, Darnell Early was one of a string of several and was in the position during a lot of the decisions that were made.
So to save money, they decided to
switch to the Flint River source because it's less expensive. And in this interim period, the difficulty with that is that, number one, it wasn't done right. You can treat river water.
And they did not.
A lot of communities are forced to drink river water because they don't have any alternative. They didn't treat it properly, because they were so focused on let's get this cheap water and let's get it as fast as we can. And there was just very little science, if any, applied to this. And, of course, when you have somebody whose principal focus is accounting and not science or civics, you get a different outcome. So this is part of a failed philosophy of government that Rick Snyder and others across the country are trying to apply. And that's where the fault lies. The fault lies with the people who in state government, because not only were they running the city of Flint, 100% political authority. This is important to note. Not 99%. They had 100% of the governmental authority over the city of Flint when these decisions were made.
So city council, nobody in
no
Flint
authority
had anything.
whatsoever.
Right.
None. Zero.
Whoa.
Now, the problem is the mayor and the council attempted to portray themselves as still being in the mix, and that's now being used against them. But we all know, everybody knew at the time, they had no authority. The state was running Flint.
The governor's office aware of what was going on?
Oh, the governor's office was intimately involved in what was going on. This is their notion. I mean, they were constantly discussing. They were celebrating whatever success they had, so they certainly were not unaware. But then, of course, it was the State Department of Environmental Quality that had warning after warning that there were problems with the water, and they just discredited the people providing the warnings. including a courageous EPA employee from Chicago who traveled to Flint to personally test water and said, wait a minute, something's wrong here. They tried to portray him as a rogue employee. A researcher, a guy named Dr. Mark Edwards from Virginia Tech, who revealed the water levels, and then a pediatrician who studied blood levels in children and showed this. So they had plenty of warnings. EPA is not blameless. I wish they would have just shouted from the mountaintop that there's a problem. But for the folks in Michigan at the state government to now try to bring EPA into the mix, it's sort of like getting caught red-handed in a crime and then saying to the police, why didn't you catch me 2 months ago?
Right.
I mean, EPA should have done more. But it doesn't excuse the fact that the DEQ, the Department of Environmental Quality, had principal responsibility. My focus, though, is making sure that the issue of accountability leads to making it right, not just knowing who to be mad at or who should be prosecuted. But the state government needs to make it right in Flint, and it's more than just bottled water and fixing a few pipes. They've got to make it right for the 9,000 kids whose lives could be affected permanently by lead exposure, and there's a lot that they could do for them.
Let's say a quick hello to John on this topic out in Minneapolis. Hey, John, thanks for your call. What's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, this is like one-party rule by, Rick Snyder, because the emergency managers, what happens often is that they step down a day before their term is due, and then they can assign another emergency manager. There's a glitch in the law that allows them to do this. It was probably designed that way. And so, what we have here is like, one-party rule. It very much is like a third world country where you have one-party dictatorship.
So it's a string of emergency managers, is that? Hey, John, thanks for the comment.
That is right. That's exactly right. In fact, it's interesting, you look back, the state of Michigan, by referendum, threw out the emergency manager law, took it off the books by public referendum. But the Republican legislature and the Republican governor wrote another emergency manager law, which was even stronger, then they attached like $1 million appropriation so that it couldn't be taken to referendum. Under our Constitution, you can't make a referendum on an appropriation. So they just went back and said, no, we're going to do it anyway, even though the public didn't want it. And they created this process where an emergency manager can be removed by the local government, but they timed it so that they would just step out, put another one in, and the clock starts all over again.
To what extent is this, as some have charged, environmental racism? I mean, if this were a Grosse Pointe, right, and one of the Ford family said, look at our water, right? This bottle of brown water came out of our tap today. How long do you think it would be before they would get some action?
About 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't think first of all, there's no doubt in my mind that places like Flint are treated differently across the spectrum. Just thinking about crime, just allowing the kind of dangerous crime without any real national response. But in this case, clearly there would have been swift action had this been a more affluent community that was majority. No question about it. The people who are responsible for it can't see that because there's a characteristic of individuals who are in a position of dominance or privilege is the absolute blindness to their own dominance and privilege. They can't see it. They they don't see any differential. The message that people got in Flint was really simple. What difference does it make? What kind of water you have? What difference does it make? Until this became a national issue, the state had not moved. We were all talking about this for months and months and months. But it took time for people across the country to understand the gravity of it. And when national news outlets began to cover it, suddenly the state changed its posture. Mm-hmm. What I worry about is that they change their posture in the short term. They activate the National Guard and get lots of water in there. I think my community needs a long-term commitment to make it right for these kids and make it right to help Flint rebuild because its reputation has been so savage it's really hard to overcome.
Absolutely. Congressman, one of the busiest members of Congress and one of the best, absolutely, on both scores. Thanks so much for your great work and as busy as you are for taking time for us this morning. Thank you so much. All right. Congressman Dan Kildee, we'll be right back.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, I know. It's hard to follow that first 2 hours. They've been so good today, but we got a big third hour coming up. You won't want to miss it. You can either watch us right away at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, or pick us up again at 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central, 2 Pacific on Free Speech TV. Coming up with Steve Shepard from Politico. Nobody knows politics better than Steve. And then Theodore Schliefer on the road in Iowa for CNN. All of that hour number 3, so hang in there.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
The U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. Nice to meet a member of Congress who's actually getting something done.
Telling
you. You know, compared to...
He's working hard.
And yeah, and by the way, Congress is shut down this week.
Right.
Should have mentioned that, right? He's here in Washington on the job. Yes, not taking advantage of another week of vacation. The federal government is closed today, but a little activity at the White House. The president and the vice president get the daily briefing this morning. Then later in the morning, the president and the vice president are going to meet with Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid to discuss legislative priorities for the coming months. And they will be trying to see if there's anything that they're going to be able to get this Congress to act on this year. Lots of luck with that.
This
Steve Shepard
is the Bill Press Show.
Societies, civilizations, in some sense, are like our bodies. If there's something systemically wrong, it's manifesting all over the place, in all our organs, and that seems to be what's going on in our world at the moment.
The system is failing all around us.
Our infrastructure is falling apart.
Our jails are full and can't hold more people. Our young people are burdened with $1 trillion in student debt.
We're in a heap of trouble.
When the temperature of the Earth is starting to rise, that's a very bad sign. Our Earth is running a fever, and it's running it because it's sick in many ways.
In a country like the United States, the fact that anywhere from 45 to 50 million people are hungry, this is a problem.
We can't go on like this. We can't keep moving toward climate catastrophe, nuclear war, persistence of inequality, poverty, famine.
There is a systems problem. These are not one-off issues. They are interconnected, and we have to look at the system as a whole.
It's time to talk about alternatives. It's time to talk about what's next.
We need to be aspirational and be clear about the vision of the world that we want.
What is the system that humanizes us? What is the system that opens up our imagination of possibilities of cooperation?
Nothing is more important right now than to discuss how can we bring about this change.
As systems fail, individual and community creativity explodes, and that's what we have seen. People in this country are solving the problems themselves. They're coming up with new models and strategies, and within those models and strategies are the kernels of a systemic way to move forward.
Land trusts, cooperatively owned businesses,
sustainable energy,
state-owned banks,
urban gardening, urban farming.
These small successes taken together are a proof of concept that this can happen on a larger scale.
We're compelled to search for alternatives, not just analytically, but in how we live and what we do, how we organize our daily lives. And that has tremendous potential.
Our actions and our imagination have to match the magnitude of this problem.
We have to get out of our comfort zone. We must think with courage.
All bets are off in terms of our previous thinking. Our ways of thinking about the economy and our ways of thinking about politics have proven an abject and utter failure. The good news is we have no choice but to adopt revolutionary thinking. I like that.
That's the exciting part about this moment. When there are no rules, then people have freedom to invent and to create new things.
I have no doubt that we can create a better America.
If the people who cared about these things really joined together to do something about them, anything is possible.
The biggest worry for me is that we don't try, is that we don't push for what we know is right, for what we know is possible.
It's time for everybody who cares about this country and the future of the planet to do something about it, to get involved.
We can actually do better. We can build a better system. It's not impossible. It's a very American thing to do, to build a new system.
It's a challenge. We can do it collectively, neighborhood by neighborhood, step by step.
I think that the world that we're on the verge of is a bright and beautiful and interesting one, complex, local, interconnected. I hope we get there.
It's time to talk about what's next. Please come and sign our statement at thenextsystem.org.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get fire adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine,
Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown,
Newtown. How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. 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 Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American. As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook. Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Federal government still shut down again today because here in Snowzilla Central, we are still digging out. Doesn't stop us, though. Hello, everybody. Tuesday, January 26th, The Bill Press Show. Great to see you. Hello, 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 and welcome. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., reaching out to you all across this great land of ours, nationwide, coast to coast, on your local progressive talk radio station. Nice to be with you in Radio Land and on television on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. How about it? Thank you for joining us again, and come on, be a full-fledged participant in the program. You know how to do that. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. And, by the way, if you don't get enough of me this morning, a little later this morning at 11:30 Eastern, I'll be on CNN at this hour, I think is the name of the program, talking about some of the things we're going to be talking about with Steve Shepard from Politico. In fact, this is my prep for CNN today, Steve, talking to you, getting all the answers about Iowa, New Hampshire, and all the rest. It's good to see you, campaigns and elections editor at Politico. Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Good. Good to be here.
I think we haven't seen you in 2016 here, so about time you got in here.
Yeah, no, and you know, with 6 days to go until Iowa, there's no better time.
This is what
and 2 weeks now, 2 weeks until New Hampshire.
This is what we live for.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Peter Rogburn and Jamie Benson on the job as always.
Hey, Bill. Hey, good morning.
Ray Rogers. She is back. Finally plowed out her neighborhood. She was able to get in. And, of course, Cyprian Bolding, our videographer here as well. You know, this the big rumor of the weekend, New York Times reporting that Michael Bloomberg, as he did in 2008, as he did in 2012, is once again teasing that maybe, just maybe, this is the time for an independent run for president. Before you tell us whether he's going to do it or not, you do have to admit that he does have a lot of things going for him, right? He's got the money. He's got the airplane. He's got the executive experience. He's got the desire. One thing that when I first thought about it, I forgot all about too, is that he has the additional advantage, as Jimmy Fallon pointed out last night, of being bilingual.
In addition to Bush, Rubio, and Cruz, that'll make 4 candidates who can speak Spanish.
En las calles hoy porque viene otra tormenta. Si su casa es inundo,
Even immigrants are like, speak English. We're fine. You're not helping us out.
Una casa de biblioteca.
Don't even try, right?
I mean, certainly during the course of Mike Bloomberg's 3 terms as mayor of New York City, it was supposed to be 2, but it was 3. He made a big effort to speak Spanish. One thing I have to quibble with, Ted Cruz doesn't really speak Spanish, as Jimmy Fallon
I guess
pointed
he
out
doesn't,
there.
does he? Right.
I'm sure
he speaks
is
Canadian.
That's
I'm
right.
sure, yeah, French probably.
Yeah, right.
He's
Quebecois, yeah.
Yeah, he speaks pretty
But
good.
no, he's not going to be able to be the Spanish speaker on the trail that certainly Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush would be.
Yeah, right.
He doesn't have those kinds of skills.
I don't think you should even try. All right.
You could say the same thing about Joaquin Castro, though. Not having very good Spanish language.
Is that right? Yeah. So, just quickly, Bloomberg, yes or no?
Look, if it's as things are trending on the Republican side where it's at this point harder than it was 2 weeks ago to imagine a path for someone not named Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, there's certainly that opening. And I don't think he'll end up doing it if Hillary Clinton rights the ship, whether that means winning one of Iowa or New Hampshire, more likely Iowa, or transitions out of those states, wins in Nevada, wins in South Carolina, is positioned to do really well on March 1st and take back control of the Democratic race. If she looks like she's going to be the nominee, say we're sitting here on March 4th, for example, I don't think he'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if Bernie Sanders is able to rack up wins in the first 3 states, in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada, lose South Carolina, though keep it close, and then do well on March 1st, I think for Mike Bloomberg, someone who is fiscally more conservative but socially very liberal, he'll look at the candidates on both sides and say that these candidates are fundamentally flawed, and just maybe there's sort of that shot at the inside straight where I can thread the needle and win as a candidate of a third party.
That'd certainly be a contrast with a guy like Trump and a guy like Bloomberg versus a guy like Bernie. 2 guys with enough money to burn a wet mule versus Bernie, who wants to spread it around a little bit.
Yeah. I know.
That's crazy.
It'll be the battle of the billionaires.
I'm telling you, man.
And that would I think help Sanders in a lot of ways because he'd be able to draw that contrast. That contrast would be less obvious with Ted Cruz, though Ted Cruz has some Wall Street ties and was able to kick in a couple of million for his Senate campaign in 2012. So he's not poor by any stretch of the imagination, but let's face it, he's not Donald Trump or Mike Bloomberg.
Right. All right, back to Iowa in just a second with Steve Shepard. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news in the wake of the Chipotle E. coli norovirus situation. Uproxx caught up with food poisoning expert by the name of Bill Marler, and he talks about things that you should be careful of when you go out to eat. These are things that he says he's a food poisoning expert, but he loves to eat. These are things that he will not eat when he goes out. Number 1, unpasteurized milk and juices. He says the number 2 culprit is raw sprouts. He won't eat raw sprouts. Undercooked meat, pre-washed or pre-cut fruits or vegetables. If you buy things at the store that say that they're pre-washed, you still want to give them a wash. Raw or undercooked eggs is also one of them, and raw oysters and other raw shellfish, which I can follow him on the other things. I don't think I can follow him on that one. I don't think I can give that up.
No. That's crazy.
So be aware of those things. That's where the highest food contamination happens. We've talked before about the special flavor of Ben & Jerry's ice cream coming out. We learned more about it yesterday from our friend Ben Cohen. The flavor is called Bernie's Yearning, and they have made 40 pints of this ice cream. That's it. 40 pints. 25 of them have been donated to the Bernie Sanders campaign, which I assume they'll use for fundraising efforts.
Yeah.
But here's how they describe it on the carton. Quote, "The entire top of the pint is covered with a thick disc of solid chocolate. Underneath is plain mint ice cream. The chocolate disc represents the huge majority of economic gains that have gone to the top 1% since the end of recession, and beneath it is the rest of us. There are also instructions on how to eat it. Take the back of the spoon and whack huge chocolate discs into several pieces and let the ice cream soften up a bit, and then you mix the pieces around. And there you have it."
Spread the wealth.
Spreading that wealth around.
I thought you take one spoonful and eat it and then give it to everybody else.
Yeah, right. No, it's spread that chocolate around a little bit. That's what they're saying. And there is a new trend emerging in Colorado. Weddings that are catered not only with food and booze, but catered with pot. Yes, indeed. In fact, Mashable caught up with a young woman who's getting married, Lauren Gibbs. Her wedding is coming up in July. She picked the perfect place to get married, very picturesque. They're going to have the whole thing catered. They're going to have a bar for people to drink, and they're going to have a bud tender. Not a bartender, a bud tender. Someone who is there to hand out and to guide people into getting high at the reception. And they say that they anticipate there are going to be a lot of people there who don't normally smoke pot. So they've got some strains for people who are not normally pot smokers that aren't as high in THC, so they can just sort of mellow out a little bit. And then others for more seasoned
The
smokers.
question is whether you get high before the ceremony or after.
Both is the answer.
Is that,
Yeah,
okay.
both. That's what
Just
you do.
stay high in the Mile High City.
That's it,
All
man.
right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. All right. So it's 5 days away. Let's look at the Republican side in Iowa. Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, but it looks like Trump's got the momentum.
It does look like that. You know, one of the things that we talked about when Ted Cruz surged ahead in December in Iowa was maybe he's peaking too soon. And that appears to have been the case. Since then, he has been attacked on multiple fronts. You've seen attacks coming from Trump. You've seen attacks coming from some of the other candidates, talking things like ethanol, his Canadian birthplace.
Still pushing that.
You know, those attacks seem to have taken a toll on Ted Cruz. You know, he was up in the 30s at one point, and now he's, depending on which poll you look at, he's in the either low 20s to upper 20s, but he's behind Donald Trump. Now, I think there are still a lot of questions going into this about whether Donald Trump's supporters are going to be reliable caucus goers on the night of February 1st. I took a quick look at the first weather forecast. There is a chance of snow. Not necessarily a big deal. Not necessarily what we just got here where it's 2 feet, but there is at least a chance of snow. I know last night there was snow in Iowa that made the roads very, very treacherous for people trying to get around to some of these events like the Democratic Forum last night. You know, that causes people who aren't as reliable when it comes to going to these caucuses every 4 years. Maybe they decide that they can't make it that night. You know, there are a lot of factors here. Donald Trump is bringing some different people into the Republican process this time around. And whether those folks actually come out, spend an hour at these caucus sites, listen to speeches, and then cast their commit the time and cast their ballots, I think is still an open question.
That's the big question, is it? Whether his supporters actually turn out to be voters or caucus goers.
I think so. I think it makes it a lot harder for him to succeed in Iowa, if we're looking at just the states in February, in Iowa and Nevada, and but makes his lead in the polls, which is larger in New Hampshire and South Carolina, a little bit more daunting because it's a lot easier to vote there.
Right. Does it matter who's third in Iowa?
It does to this degree. If it's not Marco Rubio, I think that's a huge setback for him.
Mm-hmm.
If Rubio falls behind, say, Ben Carson, who does still have a loyal, somewhere around 10% in Iowa, who are still with him at this point, I think that would be a huge setback for Rubio. If he gets surpassed by any of the other candidates on his tail other than Carson, thinking about Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, or even Rand Paul, I think that would be a huge setback for Rubio.
It's unlikely it seems to me unlikely that would happen because they're not really making a big play in Iowa.
Rubio's ahead. He's the only other candidate who's sort of flirting around that 10% threshold. That said, things do happen in the final week of the campaign. Some candidates do catch fire a little bit, and while I don't think there's enough time for someone to come up and catch Trump or Cruz, even to get into second place, it wouldn't surprise me for a candidate to leverage some late momentum to try to surge up into that third place spot.
And on the Democratic side, it's Hillary, Bernie, and just about neck and neck still, or what's going on?
That's certainly how it looks. Look, the same thing that applies to Donald Trump also applies to Bernie Sanders.
In terms of turnout.
Right, particularly in this way. Bernie Sanders is heavily reliant on younger voters in Iowa. who have been less reliable as caucus goers in the past. There's also another added element to this that's unique to the way the Democrats conduct the caucuses in Iowa. And some folks have written about this, but on the Republican side, all they do is count the total number of votes across the state and add them together. It's not how it works on the Democratic side. At each caucus site, based on voter turnout in the past couple of elections, there are a predetermined number of delegates that are at stake at that site. That means that if there's a huge influx of caucus goers at, say, a caucus site precinct in Iowa City at the University of Iowa, a huge influx of college students coming out to vote for Bernie Sanders, that doesn't affect the total number of delegates that are awarded there. What he can do is win a greater proportion of those, but he can't leverage that higher turnout to really change and really produce a huge surge for him. Meanwhile, all the caucus goers, say, in bedroom communities in the Des Moines area that are dominated by older voters who are more likely to be Clinton supporters, she can really, if he can't make inroads there, it's not going to be enough for him just to win the kids in college towns. So
it's really strategic about where you get your people out.
Right.
Yeah.
And in early January of 2008, when Barack Obama defeated Hillary Clinton, colleges were not in session at the time. So students at these, whether universities in Iowa or out of state, who were home for the holidays with their parents, could participate at their local caucus site in their hometowns. And that spread the Obama vote out a little bit. Sanders, unless these folks decide to trek, depending on how far they live from their school, back home on a Monday night when they might have classes, and they have classes, certainly have classes the next day.
Unlikely.
It might serve to dilute the impact some of the youth vote to the extent it's centralized around some of these college towns for Bernie Sanders.
Taking a look at Iowa with Steve Shepard from Politico, and next New Hampshire and South Carolina, Nevada and South Carolina. We'll take a look at those when we come back, and you can jump into the conversation with a question or a comment at 866-55-PRESS.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 26 minutes after the hour on January 26th here, Tuesday, with Steve Shepard. Nobody knows the political scene better. Campaigns and elections editor. That's why he's got the job at Politico. So let's move beyond Iowa, particularly on the Democratic side, Steve, because there are sort of two schools of thought. Okay, Bernie will probably win New Hampshire, might even win Iowa. Hillary, maybe Iowa, lose New Hampshire. But then it's going to be a different ballgame. Then she picks up in Nevada. She cleans house in South Carolina. And she moves on. That's all set piece. And then some others say, oh, Bernie wins Iowa and New Hampshire. And then suddenly the rest of the country discovers there's this whole alternative. There's new, even though he's 74, right? New face. And he's for real, and he can win, and there's a whole big momentum that gets going, and suddenly it's a real horse race. Which way do you see it?
You know, I actually probably see the second scenario if that were to happen. If Bernie Sanders is able to win Iowa by, you know, and we're only going to see a delegate count, not a vote count, but
Correct.
let's say he wins
Right.
by 5% of the delegates, a 5-point victory, you know, something like, you know, 52, 47. And 3 for O'Malley. I think, and then surges and wins New Hampshire big. I think that generates a lot of momentum. You know, there are 11 days between New Hampshire on the 9th and Nevada on the 20th. Nevada is about organization. Nevada is it's a much lower
caucus state.
It's another caucus state. You know, it's thought that the Clintons might have the state wired a little bit, but look, all the vote is basically in one city. On the Democratic side, it's all centered around Las Vegas, and you know, Labor and Bernie Sanders certainly get along well, and Labor's the biggest driver of turnout on the Democratic race in Nevada, so that it sets up is really interesting. And then, you know, a week later when you get to South Carolina, if he has the momentum at that point, who knows?
So we could see a Democratic primary that maybe lasts as long as the last one did, huh? In 2008.
You know, it seemed unlikely a couple of months ago, but you know, if he goes and wins the first 2 states handily, yeah, maybe.
What an exciting time! All right, hey Steve, enjoy the ride, and thanks for coming in
too.
today. All right, see you again soon.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good
All
job.
right. Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
All right, at 34 minutes after the hour, moving right along. On the political front, we haven't had a chance this morning to talk a lot about last night's big town hall out from Drake University on CNN. Chris Cuomo was the moderator, and the audience there filled with caucus goers, Democratic caucus goers, people who say they are going to show up Monday night for the caucuses. Some of them were already committed to Hillary Clinton, some to Bernie Sanders, some to Martin O'Malley, some were uncommitted, and others were leaning toward one of those candidates. And most of the questions were asked by members of the audience, not by Chris Cuomo. He started out a little chat with each of the candidates, and then he followed through on some of the questions from the audience to clarify or to probe or to push a little bit. But I must tell you, and I'd love to get your take on this, 866-55-PRESS. Let's really talk about it. I thought the format was a very good format. I like that format, Peter, better than the debate format, to tell the truth, because you get to know, I think you get to know the candidates more. They can relax a little bit more. They know they've got time to tell their story. They're not going to be interrupted. And you don't have the snarky questions from moderators who are trying to say, she said you're a witch, what do you say to her?
I was going to say, like the Republican debate, I think lends itself well to that debate format when the Republicans are talking, right? Because you got so many of them.
Well, that's so mean anyway, and they don't know the issues. Anyway.
Right, and they want to go after each other, right? Like they want to go after each other. And whereas with the Democrats, they're a little more reluctant, I think, to really throw personal barbs because they're not, they're not jockeying for publicity the way that the Republicans are, right? Like they don't have to make the headlines necessarily.
Right.
But they each in their own way do so well one-on-one, right? And so the fact that they get that opportunity is refreshing.
So it's certainly a lot more civil, a lot better organized, and a lot more substantive. I mean, this was a discussion of serious issues, and the issues raised were issues raised by, for the most part, 99%, by people from Iowa, members of the audience. Again, it was not professional anchors or moderators trying to make a name for themselves and trying to make a splash like that infamous question that Donald Trump was first asked in the first debate about, aren't you just a cartoon character, right? No, they were serious questions on serious issues. And I think we saw the best of Hillary, the best of Bernie, and the best of Martin O'Malley. What do you think? 866-55-PRESS. Remember, you can also send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show. Hillary Clinton was asked, for example, by one young man who said he was leaning toward Bernie, how is it that everybody thinks she's dishonest?
But if you're new to politics, if it's the first time you've really paid attention, you go, oh my gosh, look at all of this. And you have to say to yourself, why are they throwing all of that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I've been on the front lines of change and progress since I was your age. I have been fighting to give kids and women and the people who are left out and left behind a chance to make the most out of their own lives.
So I said that's why you hear all that crap about me, because they don't like me because of all the good stuff that I've been doing. It's a good answer. Showed a good spunkiness there on the part of the former Secretary of State. She, of course, was asked about Benghazi. She's got an answer for that, too.
This is only still an issue because the Republicans want to keep it an issue. They know it. I know it.
You know it. Everybody knows it. Benghazi has been resolved many, many, many times, and the Republicans just keep it alive, just like the email scandal.
That's the right answer to give.
Absolutely.
People have moved on.
Absolutely.
And it's been looked at. It's been investigated. It's over. It's done with.
Yeah. That issue was done in the first debate when Bernie Sanders said Americans are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
Yeah.
Boom. Martin O'Malley held his own, talked mostly, as he does just about all the time, about the things that he accomplished as mayor of Baltimore and as governor of Maryland, which is a good record. And I thought he looked good and handled himself very, very well last night, and certainly knows the issues as well. And for Bernie had a good night. Bernie was a little more relaxed than I've seen him, and more direct than I've seen him. He was asked about Hillary Clinton. It was interesting because they were both sitting down, he and Chris Cuomo, and they said, can I stand up there? I think this is just a stand-up answer. And he said, I just want to say how much I like Hillary. I respect her. I've known her for 26 years. She's a great person. Was a great Secretary of State. He said, but, we disagree on some issues, like the war in Iraq.
I voted against the war in Iraq. And if you go to my website, listen to the speech that I gave when I was in the House in 2002, saying, yeah, it's easy to get rid of a dictator like Saddam Hussein, but there's going to be a political vacuum. There will be instability. And it gives me no pleasure to tell you that much of what I feared, in fact, happened. Hillary Clinton voted for the war in Iraq.
That's the difference. And that made a difference in 2008, and it could make a difference in 2016. Not an attack, it's just a fact. That's one thing they differ on. They also, and Bernie was asked about, okay, she's got all the experience. Doesn't that trump, I hate to use that word.
It's a totally redefined these days.
Yeah. And Bernie says, well, experience is important, but so is judgment. Experience isn't the only thing that counts. How about judgment? He said, and that he meant, and that sort of applied to his answer on Iraq, right? He thought she used poor judgment in voting for the war in Iraq, and he thought she also used poor judgment on the Keystone Pipeline.
In terms of climate change, which everybody here knows, and apparently everybody in the world knows except Republican candidates for president, is one of the great environmental crises facing this nation. On day one, I said the Keystone Pipeline is a dumb idea.
Senator? Okay. That's certainly a blunt way to put it. You don't hear a lot of wishy-washiness in that answer.
Yeah. Day one.
Dumb idea.
Day one, it was a dumb idea. And he went on to say, why did it take Secretary Clinton so long? There's one other moment that, Bernie, I wanted to mention, Jamie, if we can, that last clip that we got on the Democratic Socialists, because a woman asked, and she said, and she had described herself as undecided, but she said, everybody says you're a socialist. What does that mean?
Democratic socialism means, to me, is that economic rights, the right for economic security, should exist in the United States of America. It means to me that there's something wrong when we have millions of senior citizens today trying to get by on $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. It means there's something wrong when the rich get richer and almost everybody else gets poor. It means there is something wrong, and government should play a role in making sure that all of our kids, regardless of their income, are able to get a higher education.
It's not bad. I mean, I think it sort of explained it. He's really talking about economic justice when he talks about democratic socialism. And he did point out that many of the things that he is talking about have worked in Scandinavia. They worked in Denmark, worked in Finland, worked in Canada, many other countries, and could work here without destroying the American economy. But again, overall, my impression of the Democratic town hall was we got three damn good candidates. They know the issues. They talk about the issues. Any one of them would make a great president of the United States. Compared to the bunch of clowns on the other side. Your thoughts, your comments, did you tune in not knowing whom you would support in the primaries and end up the evening having made a decision? Let's talk about it here at 866-55-PRESS, The Bill Press Show.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
So you're drowning in student debt, and it looks like there's no way out. Have you considered bankruptcy? Of course not. It's a dirty word, and everything you've heard says students can't file anyway. It didn't start that way. Bankruptcy laws were enacted in the 19th century to give people a fresh start. But not all debt is created equal. Take this, for example. We have you, your buddy Carlos, and your grandma Lucy. Carlos got laid off. His credit card debt was too much to handle, so he filed for bankruptcy. It will totally screw his credit, but at least he can start fresh, and after 10 years, his credit report should be fine. Grandma Lucy's home lost half its value. Now her mortgage isn't worth paying back. She says F it and decides to file for bankruptcy too. Then there's you. You didn't land that dream job, you're struggling to make ends meet, but the interest just keeps piling up. With a broken heart, you've written off the possibility of buying a home, having kids, and getting married because, hello, who wants to deal with your crazy baggage? But in reality, you want those things, and your education was supposed to get you there. Now you need a fresh start, just what bankruptcy was intended for. You try to file, like Carlos and Grandma Lucy, and that's when you realize it's not as easy for you as it was for them. In the 70s, Congress worried that students were using bankruptcy to abuse loan programs. That wasn't quite true. Still, over the years, Congress gradually stripped student debtors of their options. The Bankruptcy Reform Act of 1978 was even called discriminatory toward students by the chairman of the subcommittee. Student debt was singled out and lumped with criminal debts. Today, if student debtors try filing for bankruptcy anyway, they'll need to prove their debt imposes an undue hardship. But who's to say what qualifies as an undue hardship? Even some judges have said they don't get it. This lack of clarity in the law could work in your favor. A Harvard researcher discovered in 2012 that few students actually try to discharge their loans through bankruptcy. Of the students who filed for bankruptcy to settle other debts, only 0.1% tried the same tactic on their school debt. The craziest part? Just under half of them got their debts fully or partially discharged. In other words, you can file for bankruptcy on your student loans. Depending on your situation, it might just be a matter of trying. At least there's that.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go now at 12 minutes before the top of the hour. The Bill Press Show this Tuesday, January 26th. A little opportunity for you and a little reminder, a chance to get a copy, signed copy, inscribed any way you want it, of my new book. Comes out next Tuesday, called Buyer's Remorse: How Obama Let Progressives Down. Don't get the wrong idea. This is not an anti-Obama book. It's a pro-progressive agenda book. Talks about all the great things President Obama has done. Gives him credit for that. But also points out there were just some ways and things that where the president really didn't follow through, really didn't push for the full progressive agenda or populist agenda that we were hoping for. And why it's important then, and detail things like, you know, the drones and not having single-payer health care and not even having a public plan option. Goes through all the issues. But most importantly, ends up with why it's important that Hillary or Bernie, whichever is the next president, take the progressive agenda, that we put the pressure on them to push that progressive populist agenda from day one and to make it happen. Your copy, signed any way you want it, go to our website, BillPressShow.com, for $27. That's the book, the mailer, the mailing, the signing, the taxes, all of it.
The whole ball game.
Whole ball game, as
The
Donald
whole
Trump
ballgame.
says. Yep. Again, at our website at BillPressShow.com, and we will get it right out to you before it even shows up in your local bookstore. We've been talking about last night's town hall debate from Iowa. Chris Cuomo is a moderator on CNN. How did they do? Bill calling from out in Chicago on the great WCPT. Hello, Bill.
Yes, sir. Hi, good morning.
Hi, what'd you think?
I just thought I found it to be very interesting where I felt like they really followed up a lot on Senator Sanders and pushed him on the issues. And I felt like there was nothing of substance that got asked towards Secretary Clinton. And
Interesting, huh?
The other thing that blew my mind was that her favorite president, somebody running for the Democratic primary, was a Republican, Abraham Lincoln, and that it wasn't FDR. Blew my mind.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I'm a big Lincoln fan too.
Yeah,
but FDR, yeah, right. I mean, particularly where we are today, and those economic issues, and bringing the country back from the Great Recession. But I wouldn't read too much into that. But an interesting point. Bernie certainly did get pressed on the issues, and I thought he had good answers on the issues. I still think he's not on guns where I would like to see him. But on most of the other issues, I thought he was right on target. And people who had any doubts about where he stood on some of those issues think it was clarified. For example, the Planned Parenthood issue. I mean, he got a little flack because he said he didn't express himself very clearly. But when reporters said, "Well, Planned Parenthood invited Hillary Clinton," and on the way he sort of said it, yeah, well, like big surprise, right? They're part of the establishment. Well, they are an established organization. He did not mean to denigrate Planned Parenthood. Jamie, if we have that clip, in fact, Bernie talked about that last night with Planned Parenthood and said, basically, I'm all the way with Planned Parenthood. I just wish they had endorsed me instead of her.
In every speech that I give, what I say is not only do we stop the Republican efforts to try to defund Planned Parenthood, we should expand funding for Planned Parenthood.
So he said, mark me down as a supporter. Again, 866-55-PRESS. Let's go to Ann in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. Hi, Ann.
Hi, good morning, Bill.
Good morning. Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. I'm sitting in my car getting ready to go into work, and I just wanted to say that I am a Bernie supporter, and I just thought he did such a great job of explaining the influence of money in our system. And to my neighbors in Iowa, I just want to tell them to get out and work and don't think that you can sit back on this one. My Bernie friends, please get out there and get those folks, to show up and take part, because we've just got a lot of work to do up and down the ticket.
Well, that is the key. They got to get out there and work. They have to turn out for the caucuses, all those big Bernie supporters. But you are right, Ann. I really think nobody else talks about the money in politics but Bernie, and he's passionate about it, right?
And it resonates, and those of us that have I think I mentioned the last time I called you last spring when he announced he was going to run, I was working 3 jobs. I'm still working 2, and it's not easy out here, and things are disappearing, and, in Illinois we have our budget issues, and we really need to have someone who sees things for what they are and is willing to take on the really difficult issues.
All right, Ann, feel the burn. Ann has felt the burn. It sounds like for a long time. Thanks, Ann. Thanks for checking in and for all your good work as well. With that, we'll take a quick break. I'll come back with today's parting shot.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is Control.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Bill Press Show.
Well, you know, I know that most political commentators were shocked by Donald Trump's comment last Saturday that his supporters were so loyal he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and they would still stand by him. Yes, it's outrageous, it's disgusting, it's irresponsible, but you know what? He's right, which is what most establishment Republicans and reporters still don't understand about the Trump campaign, and which is this, that Trump's followers don't support him because of his stand on guns or abortion or immigration or any issue. They support him because he's not part of the establishment, never has been, because he's different, and he's guaranteed to shake things up. In many ways, he and Bernie Sanders have tapped into the same thing, which nobody else figured out: the frustration, the anger, and the disappointment that millions of Americans on the right and the left feel toward politics as usual, and the burning desire for somebody new. For many Republicans, that's Donald Trump. And for many Democrats, that's Bernie Sanders. That's my party shot for today, folks. On this Tuesday, January 26th, go out and have a good one. Think of us, and come on back and catch us tomorrow morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.